Welcome back to Poetry Lockdown. We are up to day 115. Really excited about the poet for today, Laurie Guerrero. Before I talk about her poem, though, I just want to acknowledge trying something new with Poetry Lockdown. You might remember one of the reasons I started this was just being inspired by the story way back when the quarantine started in Italy in March. A way that some Italians got through the craziness of the quarantine was they would sing arias from balcony to balcony across the street. I just thought that was so lovely, and I thought of this poetry lockdown back then as a way to sort of sing to other people in different parts of the country and even the world, and then also always with the intention of having you all, whoever is listening, to sing back. So yesterday, Miriam Para, a good friend of mine, she sang back with the Frost Classic, and there are other friends of mine that are interested in participating too. And if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I've got a poem that I love and I want to participate in the lockdown, please do. You can reach out to me. I'll put my email down below at czai@hotmail.com. You can always direct message me on Facebook or Twitter too, because it would just be cool just to hear more of what you love and to create this, to continue to create this community of poetry. So that's my plug. So you'll see more friends and poets sharing in the days and weeks, hope maybe months to come. Who knows how long we'll do this. That said, let's talk about today's poem. So Laurie Guerrero, I got introduced to her work partly because I'm a huge fan of Andres Montoya. I've read a number of his poems. He's a terrific poet, sadly passed away, I believe, in 1999. But the University of Notre Dame Press has, I think, an every 2-year prize where they, in honor of Andres Montoya, and especially to foster the work of Latino voices, they publish a work of a Latinx poet. And this poet, Laurie Guerrero, won the prize, I think, in 2012 or 2013, one of those two, with her book, Tongue in the Mouth of the Dying. I read one poem in that collection, and then after that, found the book and just read every single one in one night because it was so good. And one of the things that she does beautifully is really honor the elders who she loves. There's so many terrific poems to her grandparents, and this is one of those poems that just really moved me. So I'll read the poem, and then I found a really terrific interview that I'll share with you, a part that I feel like opens the poem up. So, Put Attention by Laurie Guerrero. Put attention, Grandma would say, as if attention were a packet of salt to be sprinkled, or a mound we could scoop out of a carton like ice cream. Put attention, put attention. Put it where? In her hands? In the percolator? On top of the television set that seeps fat red lips and Mexican mustaches? Next to the jade Buddha? Between La Virgen and cousin Pablo's 6th grade class photo, marshmallowy teeth jumping out of his mouth? We never corrected her. Like the breast, Spanish lulled Grandma's tongue as we threw down shards of English, laughing for her to leap in and around. Put attention, put attention. Put it where? Shall I put my attention in my glass and drink it soft like Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, like Shiner Bock, Horchata? Put attention. Ponga atención, she tried to say in our language. Put attention somewhere large, back into her eyes, in the part of her brain that doesn't remember her own daughters, how to make rice, translate instructions. That's Put Attention by Laurie Guerrero, a poem that I deeply admire and love. And here's the poet talking a little bit about that poem in an interview in Poets Quarterly. The interviewer says, in one of your especially lovely poems, you note, put attention, Grandma would say, as if attention were a packet of salt to be sprinkled, or a mound we'd scoop out of a carton. And the interviewer asks, how much does the question of dual meaning across languages influence your writing style? And Laurie Guerrero says, dual meaning across languages is part of that in-between space I mentioned earlier, It's never a question, it's a fact. One no border walker would ever even think of examining until it's brought into focus by outsiders, which is how I came up with the idea for this poem. Thinking back to the time when we as children laughed at our undereducated grandmother, how we wanted her to speak clear English because that's what they wanted in our Texas public schools. I was very ashamed. And she goes on to say, banning languages, first indigenous languages, then Spanish, is an easy way to render a people powerless. Centuries of powerlessness create men who do not see themselves worthy of education, voice, voting rights, and counter this worthlessness with surges of ridicule and anger at anyone who's different. To be a woman in this culture is to feel even less worthy, to be the receiver of most of that ridicule and anger. This is our history. And I think one of the things I love about this poem is it really does give a voice, and it takes that phrase that as children, Laurie and her siblings would make fun of, and it transforms it into something really powerful. I'm moved by the way that we go from a narrator, a speaker who's a child, right? Who's kind of like, where do you put it? Do you scoop attention out of a carton like ice cream? It's this lovely image. Where would you put it? Would you put it between the Jade Buddha, between La Virgen, the sixth grade class photo? So we're in the child mind, and then, right, we jump to after the shards, right? They're kind of making fun of her. Then we jump to the, shall I put it in my glass and drink it? Soft like Montepulciano de Brusso. Now we're an adult, drinking alcohol. And then there seems to be another shift which really moved me in the last 3 or 4 lines. She says, the poet, put attention somewhere large. And at this point, it seems like we're not, earlier, it's the grandma who's saying, put attention. And now, towards the end of the poem, now it seems like there's a shift, and it's the poet speaker herself. And I wonder, like, who would have the capacity to put the attention back into grandmother's eyes in the part of her brain that doesn't remember her own daughters. And it's like there's this largeness to the poem, a plea almost to God or to some larger being. And all of a sudden there's like this I don't know, sense of just the power of a human being, and also the sadness when that power of attentiveness is gone. I was just so moved by that movement through time, and also to just like the breadth of voice that comes at the end of the poem. So for these reasons and many more, I really admire this poem and this poet. So I would really recommend that book, A Tongue in the Mouth of the Dying. It's a beautiful collection, and really anything by this poet. So thank you, Laurie Guerrero, for writing this beautiful poem. Thank you all for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.